comfortably zoned with the Zigzag Man in Alameda, California, pushing on the doors of life marked pull and fighting the unholy trinity as we go. Big business, organized religion, and government. I am back, and you are comfortably zoned with me, the Zigzag Man, in Alameda, California, just across the bay from San Francisco in the northern part of the great state that I live in. And not only is it sunny, a little cool, 60 degrees, but it's sunny today. But I'm blessed not only with that, but I have a terrific guest. And he's from New Jersey, Pennsylvania, right on the border where I used to go to summer camp. And I'm honored to have him. Billy Staples, how are you?
Things are good. The weather's just not the same temperature on this side of the country. But
I could appreciate that. Probably why I am on this side of the country. Winters are brutal. Summers are beautiful where you are. You're in the mountains where I grew up in New York. Summers are brutal as well. So, but spring and fall in New York, you can't beat it. Summers in Pennsylvania, I used to go to camp up there, real close to Stroudsburg, where you're from. And it's God's country. Both sides of the country are terrific. The Midwest, I don't know that much about.
The easiest way to answer it is if you spend enough time out of our country at different places, it's hard not to come back home and appreciate what we have. It really is.
Absolutely, in every way. And I'm a little renewed. My hopes are a little renewed the last few days. Our president-elect seems to be mellowing a little bit and recounting some of the craziness of his campaign and coming back to almost being a human being again. That's kind of nice.
If he could successfully implement any association with baseball, I would then like him 1 degree more.
Right. Which is the nice thing about President Nixon. President Nixon was an avid baseball fan, and his son-in-law, David Eisenhower, Dwight's kid, or grandkid, as a matter of fact, was as well. And that was well storied how they would talk ball, and so everybody has a good side to them after all. We're going to talk about...
if you want, I have a Nixon story in baseball. I love it. Stadium. I was at Shea Stadium, and he was living on the other side of the river in New Jersey. But often, and more often than not, when he had daylight in his schedule, he would have his driver, a retired law enforcement officer, drive him over to the ballpark. And so I'm on the field, and I see that behind the screen at Shea, there's Nixon before the stands fill up, and he's just looking at batting practice and talking to one or two people. And so I, being a young man, said, I got to go meet this guy. So I went through the dugout, underneath the tunnel, came up one level on the elevator, and I'm proud to tell you that the only association I have with meeting the president, we only talked one topic for about 5 minutes, and that was baseball and the induction ceremonies back then when they weren't so crazy in Cooperstown, New York.
Wow, that had to be a thrill. Anything you remember about the conversation? Any of his favorite players or any of his thoughts?
Monty Irvin at the time was working for Commissioner Kuhn. And Monty Irvin, when everything happened with the change of the Hall of Fame inductions, with Satchel Paige going in and Josh Gibson, I had brought up that when we were at the OT Saga Hotel, I got to meet all these people that were obviously Hall of Fame members now, and sit in the lobby, and I told him, hearing stories firsthand of the Negro Leagues has been the most educational thing for me in baseball that I've experienced. And Nixon knew his baseball. I mean, he really knew his baseball.
Right.
And he started going into the same thing, talking about the Buck Leonards, the Judy Johnsons. And so our conversation started with baseball, switched to Monty Irvin, and then switched to the Negro Leagues. And it's strange to say this to you, Ralph, but about a minute into the conversation, I was no longer talking to a former president. I was just talking to another guy that liked to talk baseball.
Another fan at the ballpark. That's what it comes down to. It's our common denominator as Americans is our we can communicate. It doesn't matter. You could be sitting next to Himmler. Himmler, are you a Met fan? Yeah, Lord, I'm a
so true.
Right, a Met fan, you know. All right. Hey, I'm sorry about my grandmother too, but we're talking a little ball here.
So true.
I am a little weird. You're going to have to find that out for yourself, as will your co-author of the book. We're going to meet up with him one day down the line. His name is Rich Herschlag, and you and he wrote a book called Before the Glory, and it's about 20 baseball heroes talking. This is the subtitle: 20 baseball heroes talk about growing up and turning hard times into home runs. And it sounds intriguing because any story of heroics where you come back from being down without a chance, that sort of thing, where you're the long shot, that's most appealing. Tell me some of these guys. First, tell me how it came about that you and Rich wrote the book.
With combining efforts with Hirsch, he was already an experienced author that had a bunch of books, 7, 8, 9 books out there on the national market. And there was a newspaper story that an author from New York City and graduated from Princeton had moved into our area. So I read the article and I knew about Hirsch's success. I had no idea that growing up in Queens, he was a huge baseball fan. So when we crossed paths, this project was already started and associated with Jack Canfield from Chicken Soup for the Soul. And I just said, I really would appreciate, you've got experience. I've got a big task of undertaking. I would associate any guidance from you. And leave two baseball guys together. And 10 years later, we're working on our third book. And we talk to each other 2-3 times a week, no matter what our business lives has outside of our endeavors. And just asking for guidance and help. Yeah, oh, my gosh. And he's a graduate of Princeton, and I barely made it to community college. So, he kids me. He says, you got a master's, and I only got a bachelor's. And I say, no, Hirsch, you can be as humble as you want. I wouldn't last a semester at Princeton.
Well, I do a weekly show with Peter Golenbach, who went to Dartmouth when he was like 14 and was in law school before he could shave, and has 9 bestsellers. So I know exactly how you feel when it comes to education. I went to Newtown, and I was Newtown High School in Queens. I was a super senior and played a little tennis at community college, and went there for the tennis and nothing else. So, but intellect has not. It really doesn't have any. Your education really has nothing to do with intelligence, is what I'm saying. So don't sell yourself short. You yourself, you're a teacher, an educator, and you bring a lot to the table.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I often say to my students that I've been in their shoes. Now, that may not make sense to them, but I just mean that I truly have been in their shoes, and it turned out okay with a lot of help from other people. I intend to be one of those people that, if they choose to, I help them. It's as simple as that.
Right. You know, it's funny with kids that the parents and the people that are helpful with kids are the ones that can remember being a child themselves. I know that was a big attribute for me when I was raising my kid, was that I put myself in his position of powerlessness and all of those things that, good, bad, or indifferent, that go into being a kid and what it takes to make that transition into adulthood, and it's not always easy.
The ones who don't forget, right, that also keeps you humble. And that's, from dealing with all these Hall of Famers and ball players, and you only talk about their personal life, what's the one trait that stands out now that we're 2 books in and almost done with our 3rd? Exactly that comment of they concentrate on what keeps them humble.
Yeah. Speaking of whom, it must be a hard guy to be humble if his name is Brooks Robinson. He wrote the introduction to your book, and he is humble. But oh my God, if anyone has the right to not be humble, it would be him. This guy had a glove. I mean, wow.
But he constantly, when Hersch and I were with him, he reflects back on that childhood in Arkansas, the simplicity of it. When he was starting that career in Baltimore, when he would go home, he's going home to his family in Arkansas. And in the late 1950s and early 60s, there wasn't much of a salary, but there sure was notoriety that you're one of the guys with the 16 teams. But still, that trait, we've talked about it many times before, even with other Hall of Famers. Other Hall of Famers acknowledge that him and Mazeroski have probably the highest level of humbleness out of the 65 or so living Hall of Famers.
That's interesting because they both made the Hall of Fame on their glove, and I would say, especially Mazeroski, and and they were both arguably the best all-time position players at their position. Maz was absolutely incredibly quick hands. If this guy was a middleweight boxer or a lightweight boxer, he'd have been absolute. Imagine his hands in the ring. He could turn a double play so quickly, and Brooks was Brooks. I still think that Clete Boyer is equal at third base. But
well, to have 3 boys come from the same mother from this small farming community, and have Cloyd, Ken, and Clete leave the small town in Missouri and go on for the Yankees and Cardinals. The 64 Yankees played, of course, the Cardinals.
I'm going to tell you something about Alma. It had a postmaster, and her name was Mrs. McKinley. My friend from the Air Force, Dave McKinley's mother, was the postmaster in Alma. I mean, way back in the day. Yeah. So I still remember his name. He was a great guy. Air Force days. Me, United States Air Force, serving the country. My grandmother would say, God bless the country.
And I would say to you, your grandmother had a sense of humor.
Oh, well, no, she was a pragmatist. She meant it. God bless the country. It's come to this. Let me tell you this. I am so in awe. I'm looking through this reviews about your book. It's terrific. What did you get out of it? Because this is a topic that, as an educator, had to transcend to the classroom on some level.
Ralph, I'm gonna tell you flat out. In 8 years, can you imagine how many interviews that you do in book promotion and signings? You're the first person to ask that question. You're the first person to ever ask that question. Literally, if you were in my shoes, it's the most important question of this whole project. But you never tell anyone that's giving you publicity. You don't even try to steer them. Just let them be their own person.
Okay.
So the answer is this
Thank
whole
you.
idea.
I mean, I'm honored by that response.
Truth is truth. And there's other interviews all over the internet that we've done, but no one's ever asked that question, and that's what fueled us. The backing of all this isn't baseball. That's just what's the bond. And I thought to myself, what if these kids that I taught in a very, very low-income neighborhood, what if they got to 11th or 12th grade and were told, we've got money for you as long as you will agree to be mentored and you'll come back to your community if you ever graduate. So the whole purpose of this book was to raise money to send low-income kids to college. All these years later, we have 32 kids currently in college with 51 college graduates from this community. And I cannot tell you how many ball players, Mr. Miller, Marvin Miller when he was alive, and Steve Rogers from the Players Union. I can't tell you how many are associated with this project because that's the bottom line, is giving kids that want an opportunity. We're giving them mentoring and 8 checks for 8 semesters over 4 years to come back home proudly. That's the whole thing. It's really not baseball.
I did not know that going in, but I had a feeling because on Facebook, you have an expression, and you tell it. It's a beautiful reflection of the man that you are, and that's why I wanted to have you as a guest.
I never in my teenage years, nor my early 20s, ever thought of being a teacher. I was just, if I ever get out of this place, which I came from a similar background as these students, I want to make big money. You know, that's what our young minds are trained, you know. And so I was the first in college to get the degree, and then I got into the business world, and then I attained everything that we're told. Helped my family, bought a house, got a car, some clothes, and after a while, I just thought, is that it? So at 27, I went back to college to take more classes to be certified to be a teacher. And when I got in the classroom at 29, you have a very different perspective that you're bringing to the students than you would as a college graduate at 22, 3, or 4. And I never worked, Ralph, this isn't for the radio. I never worked a day in my life because I was honored to be their teacher. And that's not words, that's the genuine, but they can feel that. And the kids that normally didn't come to school or didn't want to work, they at least came to my class and wanted to work in my class. So it's as genuine, as truthful as can be.
Nice way to go around the track, my friend. Because you're right. Money, the only time money is really important is when you don't have any.
Exactly.
But if you have a modicum of it, you can make it go a long way if you can appreciate the other things in life, such as time and the trade-off between having time to do what you love to do. Of course, if you're working at something you love, it's academic. You don't even have, it's not work. It's just getting up in the morning is a joy. And so that's good. Tell me some stories about the people you wrote about in this book.
If we picked, I would say to you, pick a Hall of Famer, a current player, or a retired player that's not a Hall of Famer with character. So I send it right back to you and pick one out of the 3. And I'll run with whatever you pick. Current, retired player with character, or Hall of Famer.
I'll go with the Hall of Famer.
All right.
Only got you one.
the first one has to be, I, of course, have a cell phone at the time, and I'm in the classroom teaching, and I look at it. You can't answer. It's just not professional. And it doesn't matter who's calling, because if the rule is for the students, the same rules for the teachers. So I see the number because I had been trying. And during my lunch break, I called back John Boggs in San Diego. And he got my sample chapters during the year that Tony Gwynn was elected and inducted into the Hall of Fame. And he called and said, I've read some of these pages of what you're doing. And I chatted with Tony, and this is something that myself, Tony, and his wife want to be involved in. Ralph, where do you go from there? I mean, that's a real personal story, but it doesn't get better. So both Hirsch and I fly to Chicago. Both of us, that means Tony came in from the West Coast, and he also had some downtime because of appearances. And this is the best one he told. He's sitting there, and when you don't talk about baseball, you just talk about your childhood, family, funny, sad stories. But after a few minutes, you realize this isn't the media, this isn't a reporter, this is you. This is your life, your emotions, your family. So Tony, that there was an older girl that lived up the street, and he felt like the biggest geek in the world. And that's what some middle school kids feel. So he gets to high school, and his athleticism's starting to grow. And his first date in high school was with this older girl that lived down the street. And since she was older than him, she's the one that had her driver's license and got her car and picked him up. And it's not the story, Ralph. It's his face when he was telling it. Your eyes and your cheeks, your emotions just don't lie. There was a hesitation with him getting to that point in the story. And he said, I have never gone on another date with another woman. And I still feel like the luckiest guy in the world to be married to my wife.
Oh, that's his wife. That's his wife.
Whew. I know it's not baseball, but that's love.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, that was...
And, oh, wow. Sad for
So
her.
You picked Hall of Famer.
To
we lost him way too young. You know, when you lose somebody that young, and then for him to share all of his personal stories of growing up and vacations and his brother and his pop. So his biggest thrill in the major leagues, by far, was walking from the on-deck circle to the batter's box and hearing Bob Shepard say, and now batting. So in the World Series, when the Padres played the Yankees, his biggest thrill wasn't any of the things that people would guess.
What number did he wear again?
19, and he's chapter 19 in our book.
Wonderful. Now batting for San Diego, number 19, Tony Gwynn, number 19.
You got Shepard down pat. By the way, he was
I gotta have
when
somebody.
this book came out.
I gotta have somebody.
Shepard was alive.
I can't think of a line I can say in my own voice. I better use Shepard. But two greats. Bob Shepard was unbelievable. I mean, again, I don't know if we talked. I wasn't a Yankee fan growing up in New York. I was a New York Giant fan, later a Met fan. But I was a Yankee worshiper, and to hear him now batting Yogi Berra, that type of thing, whoa, it was unbelievable as a kid. I was blessed. Grew up in a city where we thought it was a birthright to have a World Series played in your city. It was just that's the way it was.
Between Brooklyn, right?
I grew up in
Polo
Queens.
Grounds, yeah. You're so right.
But went to the Polo Grounds, and it was a great life from the standpoint of baseball in New York City. And
what World Series was your most memorable as a kid? Which year was the biggest?
I go right away to 1956. I came home from school, and it was the final inning or two of the World Series between the Yankees and Dodgers. Don Lawson, it wasn't the final game, but Don Lawson, Yogi jumps into his arms. It was the closest moment I had with my mom that I could remember.
Really?
But because she told me a story that day. She said in 1939, when Lou Gehrig she was 19, and when Lou Gehrig was retiring, she got tickets to that game. She saw the game where he gave the speech. And I went, wow.
Oh, my.
Yeah, and she told me that story, and we watched the Don Lawson final Dale Mitchell at bat. I don't remember how much of the last of that game I saw. I know school got out at 3:30. Games then were played, World Series were played in the daytime then.
Sure.
Different. Things are so different. What changes have you seen in baseball over the years that you like, and what changes have you seen that you don't like?
The easiest one to go with is not being on the negative side, but just saying that I miss it. So I grew up being blessed to be in the locker rooms and the dugouts and where people dream of being. So what are some of my favorite memories? It's so easy to understand where I'm going with this. It was Billy Martin's passion. It was Earl Weaver just living and dying on each call, and when he'd spin his hat around. So seeing Billy pop out of the dugout, seeing Earl pop out of the dugout, because of replay, you will still have these baseball arguments fueled by passion here and there. But the answer is here and there. And I accept replay, but oh my gosh, do I reflect fondly on there was no replay. And managers would fire up a crowd or fire up their team. And so there's a different angle on replay. I accept the change, but I sure do miss what I was blessed to experience.
You've had a good life.
I literally tell my friends, and it's not a lie, I allow myself at this age to be I'd say I'm one of the happiest buddies you've got. I'm genuinely happy, but that means I've listened to older people teach me that you'll really get there someday if you feel this way.
Right.
I have been blessed with the Jimmy Stewart wonderful life. It's filled with people that help me and hard work and not dreaming, but putting energy behind your dreams to make them come true.
Any regrets? Anything you left out of the book that you wish you put in? Anything you put in that you wish you left out?
Yeah, when folks say, because I interview people for a living, when folks say I have no regrets, I listen, and I accept it. And everybody can have a different opinion on any subject. I have regrets where any of my actions or comments unnecessarily hurt other people. I was younger. That person, maybe in my teens or my early 20s, is not who I am now. But instead of taking minutes with regret, I replace it with extra minutes, doing more than hopefully some of my peers to make the common person, anybody I associate with each day, let them feel special. So I'm hard on myself where I may have said some things that hurt feelings, but hopefully I've gotten better, and as I'm older, a different person. So without a doubt.
You're the kind of guy that I wouldn't mind hearing an inspirational speech, and you do some public speaking, and so how can people get in touch with you for that?
Ralph, that's what I mean by it. One book comes out, supported by Major League Baseball and Jack Canfield, who sold 400 million books, and Canfield books me to open them up in Vegas, and I've never done it before. So he said, no, don't plan it. Just go out there and be yourself. I've been to 9 countries and 49 states because of colleges and universities and high schools bringing me in to talk with their students, not to them, and or talk with their staff, not to them. And the way they've booked me is through Chicken Soup or the website, which is my name, BillyStaples.com. And because of this book idea to help kids out, I've actually, as an adult, got to see our country, which of course, there's no travel. Never stayed in a hotel or motel as a child.
Wow.
So,
what do you like about the country? In other words, you grow up in a certain place. It's what you perceive the United States to be is what our surroundings are. When you're a kid, when you're until you get out there and you realize it's different. What do you like about it that's different from where you grew up? Is there
it's another good question, Ralph. Think of anything we've heard on the radio, television, or newspaper, or the internet today. So what sells or what is topical are these stories, whether it's stabbings, shootings, negativity, drugs, fire. Well, actually what I learned when I got out there is that most people I interact with, I was in Joplin, Missouri, just after 164 people passed away in 4 minutes on a sunny day. I truly see all the goodness. I allow myself. And go ahead, look at the next 10 people that walk past you at the mall or on the beach out there in California. Everybody, of course, has their tough traits. But all in all, most people really are good folks. It's the negativity that gets the attention. So the answer is simply what I started this off with. I allow myself to have the pleasure of seeing the goodness in so many folks. It's really not that hard.
State. How do you like the road? What do you do on the road?
Wow. So many things. For instance, San Antonio. I had no idea that there was an underground, and you can go to 20 different restaurants underground.
Really?
Sedona, Arizona. Do you think a kid from South Main Street in New Jersey ever heard of Sedona, Arizona? It's probably the most beautiful place in the United States I've seen. I go a day early or stay a day late any gig that I'm ever booked at. And I just try to go educate myself. And I go, if I was out on the West Coast, I'd say, hey, Ralph, what do I got to see or do before I leave here? Because I'm staying an extra day and a half. And the local people will tell you, go to Steinbeck's museum out there, just north of you. And don't hurry through it. He wrote those books because he was with those people. I never knew that. So it's the common people anywhere you go. I'll give you a Jeter story with your answer. Jeter sends me to his hometown high school twice to give presentations in Kalamazoo. I didn't know there was a Kalamazoo project that 2 companies pay for every kid in Kalamazoo to go to college if they choose to go to a school in the state of Michigan.
Wow.
Forget about just a site in Kalamazoo. This has nothing to do with baseball. 2 big weeks at companies say, hey, let's work together instead of against each other. Whew.
Nice.
There's goodness everywhere, Ralph. You just gotta be in the frame of mind to let it happen.
Well, I'm happening today with it. It's a nice day for me. You really boosted my spirits, and I'm appreciative. So I hope you'll come back sometime.
Well, this is baseball, so I'll make you a deal, Ralph. Besides talking to my co-author, how about the next time I come back, we have 3 of us, me, you, and a ball player, so that we add a lot of laughter with these stories, because these guys are filled with stories. And once you put the 3 of us together, It doesn't matter what ball player.
Well, you can bring me a ball player every day, and I'll give you an hour. Every day of my life.
Well, I should tell you this. Buckle up, because when you get Hirsch on, whatever I am, he's an entirely different force, and I'm in awe of him. I kid you not.
Well, I'm in awe of you. I'm in awe of your attitude and your enthusiasm and your passion. That's what can I tell you? And the way you look at life, you're giving back, and there are most people that are just simply taken. And it's been a nice interview. I really enjoy your company. Well,
however you found us, Ralph, let us be the first time of many. And I'll be out in Oakland, San Francisco this upcoming season in 2017. So maybe spend a day.
You always have a place to stay. You always have a place to stay.
As long as you come to the ballpark with me. I want you to sit next to me while we talk ball.
That would be nice.
Well,
take care, Billy.
My
pleasure too, and we'll talk very shortly. I'll tell everybody out there to just keep on keeping on. Life is up and down, over and out, and over and about. And in this case, over and out. See you, ladies and gentlemen. Bye, Billy.
Bye-bye, Ralph. Thanks again.